All right, so we're going to continue on here. 32 teams and 32 shows. Play that sound.
Oh, yeah. Friday. Time for the NFC least. New York Giants.
So the New York Football Giants, huh?
4-13 last season for the New York Football Giants. They were last in the NFC East, and that was them missing the playoffs for the 5th consecutive season. Now, if you were to look and say, hey, is there anything to be excited about? They do bring in Brian Daboll as their new head coach. Of course, we know Brian Daboll with an incredible amount of success in Buffalo as their offensive coordinator. They bring in Mike Kafka as their new offensive coordinator. He was in Kansas City coaching a pretty good quarterback by the name of Patrick Mahomes.
Coaching staff is already worth like 1.5 wins. Upgrade.
I don't know if you consider what he did in Kansas City to be good, but I mean, I think Patrick Mahomes is pretty good.
He's
Not
okay.
bad.
Yeah.
He's okay at this quarterback thing, and I think Kelley just made a very astute point. We know absolutely nothing about this coaching staff with Daboll as a head coach and Kafka as an OC,
But we do get Wink Martindale.
we get a good.
Wait, Martindale too. At least 1.5 wins, if not more.
You at least are getting rid of a coaching staff that ended up being, and it's so weird because in year one for Judge, by the end of the year, you actually kind of felt pretty good about where things were going with the Giants. They nearly won a division with 6 wins. Again, a joke,
right?
But at least they were playing better. At least they were competitive. And then by the end of the last year, they're running QB sneaks on 3rd and 17 from their own 5.
We were scratching our head when Wink Martindale got let go, and so I think this is as good a hire as they could possibly make here for the Giants. And if you look at this coaching staff, the way that the NFL is evolving, this could fall flat on its face. There's no we've seen it time and time again. We've seen guys be unbelievably awesome coordinators, and then when they have to take that next step, it's just a totally different ballgame. They hadn't been able to equal that success that they had as a coordinator with being a head coach. That said, I am okay with what the Giants are trying here and not coming in with some retread, some guy that's been there, done that, and we know what he's all about. At least we do have a guy that has come in. We know he has worked. Yes, we can give Jordan Palmer some of the credit as well, but we know that he has worked with that quarterback situation in Buffalo, made Mitch Trubisky and Josh Allen Josh Allen a top-tier starting quarterback. Mitch Trubisky got him another starting job in the NFL. So he was able to work with those guys and get those guys where they're at. And again, this could fall flat on its face, but I do at least like the Giants stepping outside of the box and saying, hey, let's go get this guy that we think could be special.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do when you hire a head coach, especially when, let's face it, this run that the Giants are on, this doesn't happen to this franchise. They don't go a decade without a playoff win. They don't go 5 years without making the playoffs. And that's what they've been. Them and the Jets, again, it has been the talking point of talking points in New York for the last 5 years now of how pathetic those two franchises have been. Jets haven't been in the playoffs since 2010. Giants, of course, the boat year was the last time that they were in the postseason. So, look, you're in a scenario here where if you're the Giants, of course, go hire the GM from Buffalo and hire a guy who we think can be a good head coach in this league. Again, we don't know. There were guys who we thought were going to be great NFL head coaches who stunk, and guys who we thought were horrible hires who ended up being really darn good. So it is one of those. When you look at this roster, though, Matt,
the guys that left, I mean,
guys that left don't really move the needle. I mean, Brad Berry kind of does, but they just flat out cut him for cap.
Yeah, I mean, Evan Ingram's gone. He never lived up to the hype. James Bradbury's gone. Austin Johnson's gone. You got Jabril Peppers, who's gone as well. So he's out of there. Nate Solder, no longer there at left tackle. So he's gone as well. Will Hernandez, the right guard, he's out of town. Logan Ryan at safety, also gone for this team. But on the other side, I mean, look, they brought in a solid backup. If you think that this team could actually compete for anything in the East, should Daniel Jones go down, they brought in Tyrod Taylor, who we know has a ton of starting experience, who has a ton of experience in this league, where if they are, hey, look, let's say we're sitting here in week 12, 13, and they're competing with the Cowboys for the division. Tyrod Taylor would be a pretty good option if something happened to your guy. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Mark Glowinski in at right guard. I mean, like, listen, that's a pretty good signing for them as well. Justin Ellis on the defensive line they brought in as well. So, I mean, it's not a ton of guys coming in for them, but, I think the at least the backup signing there, and I think that the right guard signing is pretty good.
Just to jump in real quick, 2 notes just coming across Twitter that Jeff Parles will like. Matt Carpenter receives a timed 45-second standing ovation.
Oh, actually,
way over the number.
Wow,
way over.
actually, you know what? I'll be honest with you, Kelley.
That's from Katie Wu, who writes about the Cardinals.
Kelley, I'll be honest with you. I actually am pretty proud of my 38.5.
Yeah,
that was a good number.
That was not a terrible number.
Also, from Kevin Roth, he says Baltimore weather will be clearing here. That start time has been slotted for 8:35 Eastern. He says they look good to go.
Okay.
There you go. Your parlay is live.
Just win the game.
Yes.
Just win the game.
Parlay is live. Now, in the draft, they had 2 first-round picks. As you know, there were several teams that had 2 first-round picks. So with the number 5 overall pick, they took Kayvon Thibodeau, defensive end, a guy that for the longest time was in high consideration to go number 1 overall in the draft. They get him at number 5. They get Evan Neal with the 7th pick, an offensive tackle. So they get a tackle to bolster the offensive line for Daniel Jones. You get a really good defensive end in Kayvon Thibodeau. You come back in the 2nd round. You knew that there was at least some need at the wide receiver position as well. They do take Wan'Dale Robinson in the 2nd round at wide receiver. In the 3rd round, they take another offensive guard, and then a cornerback as well in the 3rd. All of these guys are going to see significant playing time. All of these guys are going to get a lot of reps, and I think that, listen, from a draft perspective, we know that there were some winners and losers, and certainly the teams that had 2 first-round picks, there were a lot of those that we considered winners when coming out of the draft. But, Jeff, I mean, when you look, getting Kayvon Thibodeau at pick 5, that again, midway through the college season was the guy that was supposed to go number 1 overall. You get Evan Neal, a guy that might be your 10-year starting tackle for this team. And then you come back and you get a guy that a little bit of upside in Wan'Dale Robinson at wide receiver in the 2nd round. I overall, I give it a thumbs up.
Matt, they took 2 guys at 5 and 7 who at one point or another were the favorite to go number 1 in the betting markets. That's pretty darn good by the Giants. Look, I thought their draft was great. They did exactly what they needed to do. They got the pass rusher they've desperately needed, and they got an offensive line help, which they desperately needed. Again, their offseason, all things put together, was pretty darn good. Again, it's going to come down to number 8. Is Daniel Jones even competent?
We'll talk about that. What kind of offensive line is he going to be working behind? We will see that receiving core. Where do these positional units rank up, and what do the projections say about the New York Football Giants here on the other side? Okay. The Giants last year, DVOA, they were 31st in the NFL. If you were wondering, that is second to last. They were the dead last offense, the 32nd rated DVOA offense in all of football, 18th in defense, 11th in special teams, which is the only thing that kept them out of being the worst team DVOA in all of the NFL. So they do projections over Football Outsiders as well. Their mean projection for this team next year, 6.6 wins. They have them winning 0 to 5 games 36% of the time, 6 to 8 games 43% of the time, 9 to 11 18% of the time, and 12 or more only 3% of the time. In all of their simulations, this team made the postseason in 16.4% of them. So less than 1 in every 5 sims had this Giants team making the playoffs. I understand because there's probably a lot of priors factored into that, but we can't really quantify what Daboll is going to be able to do. We can't really quantify what he's going to be able to do with Daniel Jones as well. So I get it. I understand. I think they have a better than a 16% chance of making
I 100% agree with you. I mean, just look at the schedule that they have. They got the fortune that they have a lot of winnable home games.
Yeah.
Against teams that aren't good. Like, if that game against Carolina was in Charlotte, they would probably be a 3.5-point underdog. Instead, they'll probably be favored, actually, in that game against Carolina. Chicago, another home game they should probably win. Houston, Detroit, the Commanders games.
And I'm glad you bring this up because it is according to Warren Sharp over at Sharp Football, the easiest schedule entering the 2022 season out of any team in the NFL.
Matt, I was going through this last night to figure out with this. I had the Giants at 8 wins. with a lot of things going right.
Right.
Now, I don't think that would it shock me if the Giants ended up at 5-12? No.
Right.
Would it shock me if the Giants end up 8-9 like I have? No, absolutely not. Because that schedule, if things go right, and we're going to learn pretty quickly here, because week 1 at Tennessee, even though they're going to be a touchdown underdog on the road, would it shock you one bit with a new head coach in his first game on the road against a team that is way down from what they were a year ago on paper? Would it shock you if the Giants went to Nashville and won that game even as a touchdown underdog?
No,
it would not shock me one bit if that happened.
Well, it certainly wouldn't shock me because I'm way down on this Titans team, so it wouldn't shock me in the least bit. I think that they are certainly live in that week 1, and you think that they're going to be live in week 2 against the Panthers as well, and then certainly against the Bears. So it
could be
not
live on Monday night against Dallas in week 3.
It is not out of the realm of possibility. They leave week 4 heading into week 5 going up to Green Bay at 3-1. I don't think that is out of the realm of possibility for sure. You know, if you look at these range of outcomes, I think that 3-1 is certainly possible. Now, if you look at these unit rankings, the offensive line, 22nd overall according to Warren over at Sharp Football. If you look at the front 7 on the defensive side of the ball, 25th overall. The real problem here for this Giants team, according to all of the preseason rankings, is really going to be this secondary. So that is, and listen, in a passing league, that could come back to bite you. So you're looking here, Jeff, we're like, hey, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this. But then you come back and you say, but are they going to be able to get enough pressure on the quarterback to take some pressure off of this secondary? And if they aren't, and there's a ton of pressure on this secondary, then at that point, we're going to start looking around and going, oh boy, there's the Achilles heel. They can't cover anybody. And so even the bad teams, Commanders, are throwing all over the place on them.
Yeah, no, look, there's a reason that they're projected to finish last in the division still. There are plenty of... They're not going to catch the Eagles or the Cowboys. They're just not good enough yet.
Yeah.
Unless if Hurts is so below expectations, even for me, who's someone who doesn't love Jalen Hurts as much as everyone else seemingly does, I think Jalen Hurts is a below average starter. But that roster around him in Philly is so good that I don't think it matters. They're still going to win 9, maybe even 10 games, even with average quarterback play. But the Giants can absolutely finish ahead of the Commanders. And I think the Commanders are one of the teams where their odds don't match up at all. Yeah. They're a 5-win team with Carson Wentz playing quarterback in more than half of their games. That graphic we had before, Giants to finish at third at plus 275, I don't mind that.
I might, before things are all said and done, take a flyer.
Plus 225. Sorry.
Take a flyer on them to win the division. I already have the Eagles. As well, but I think it is not out of the realm of possibility for them to put something together. I'll admit, I'm a Brian Daboll stan. Like I think the dude is super, super sharp, and I think he's going to make a difference there for this team for sure.
It's going to be an improvement.
I am a little bit higher on this New York Football Giants team than most. Will I be right? Will I be wrong? Fortunately, you won't remember whenever the end of the season rolls around anyway.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.